Yes, guys, and welcome to the Fulham vs Sunderland match preview. It feels so good to be back. It feels so long ago since that game against Arsenal at the Stadium of Light, and thank the Lord we don't need to see another international break until March. We can keep going, because at the minute, particularly with the positivity surrounding the club at the minute, all these international breaks, it just feels like such a halt in momentum, doesn't it? So it's kind of like we need to start off from square one again and sort of start off at the drawing board again, which, to be fair, every time it's come, we've come back even better than ever. So it's maybe a positive, I don't know. But thankfully, we do manage to go straight all the way through to March with no interruptions. But before we do get into it, do us a massive favour. Hit the like button on the video. Can we hit 200 likes? It'd be massively appreciated. We've got quite a few bits to go through today, of course. We've got the preview to the Fulham game. But also, I'm going to touch on a couple of little transfer rumours that have been going on over the last few days or over the last week or so. Nothing too dramatic, but, you know, I like to cover transfer rumours, do you know what I mean? But yeah, if you can subscribe as well, it'll be massively appreciated. There's currently so many of you guys that have been watching, particularly since the beginning of the season. I think there's over 50% that are watching regularly. I hope you're enjoying the content. I'm going to keep bringing content to you, but you're not yet subscribed. So if you can consider it, it'd be massively, massively appreciated. But yeah, we'll start off with a couple of little transfer rumours. So apologies, I will get to the review or the preview very shortly. But there's been a couple of little transfer rumours. One of them being our captain, Super Granit Xhaka. So there was quite a few rumours from a couple of different European outlets suggesting that Juventus are readying a €20 million bid for Granit Xhaka. And within 8 hours, maybe 12 hours maximum, it was totally rubbish. I think there might have actually been legitimate interest. However, we paid around that amount for Granit in the first place. Granit is very, very happy. He's been the captain, or he has been made the captain of the club. He's playing well and has no desire to leave. That came back from, you know, Keith Downey, Fabrizio Romano, sort of rubbishing those claims. Granit has zero intention of leaving the club. He's really happy with the start Sunderland have made. He's happy with the start that he's made personally and where the club are going in the right direction. He has zero desire to leave whatsoever. And I believe, I don't know whether it was a quote or not, but he's just starting. So yeah, that's been absolutely rubbish, and I thought it was absolute bollocks anyway, because I can't see Granit wanting to leave so soon. Of course, when a huge club like Juventus come calling, there's a tiny bit here that just thinks you almost can't blame him if he does kind of head over that way. But he's been here a matter of months, 3-4 months, whatever it is, and it would be a bit daft for us to even consider a €20 million bid for someone who has been so integral, and he's going to get interest here, there and everywhere because of how integral he has been. To get Sunderland in the top four, and he's been the real driving force behind that and sort of almost transforming this team, and he's basically managing the pitch, or when he's on the pitch, he's the manager on the pitch, he's the controller, the conductor on the pitch. Of course he's going to get a bit of interest here and there, but Granit doesn't strike me as someone who is going to get his head turned that soon. You know what I mean? When things are going as well as they are, and he's clearly loved and very valued by not just the club but the supporters as well. So bollocks to it. Yeah, there was another one as well, or another couple. There was a small report over the last few days suggesting that Masuaku was interested in heading back to Turkey, which I won't lie, I don't dislike the bloke, but you know, from the little bits we have seen of him, he hasn't impressed me. He's pretty much been exactly what he was described to us before he did come, in that, you know, defensively incredibly shaky, but getting forward, he can do a job. And I feel like Masuaku would probably benefit when we're playing teams that we know we're going to sort of steamroll, or we're going to have the majority in the bulk of possession and driving at teams again and again and again, because he can bomb down the line. He can put in half decent quality crosses and maybe pop up with a bit of skill here and there. But defensively, again, I don't want to just, you know, throw him under the bus or anything, or just come to an absolute conclusion on him, because he has only had a very limited amount of time with us in terms of appearances and game time. But defensively, he has been very, very poor and shaky from what I have seen. I'll be happy to be proven wrong at some point. I'm sure he will get a bit of game time here and there. But thus far, probably right now, if someone said Besiktas want him or whatever it is, would I be heartbroken if he was to leave in January? Probably wouldn't. You know, his experience is valuable. From the little clips you see from the behind-the-scenes footage from the club, Masuaku seems to be a well-liked player, which is a trait and an attribute in itself, and something that is very valuable. The togetherness behind the scenes, we've seen it, and you can see it sort of filter onto the pitch as well. The togetherness is there, so I do get that. I value that as well. But as I say, he hasn't massively impressed me, and I don't think he's massively impressed anyone else thus far. So, you know, it'd be a totally contrast in reactions if Granit went or if Masuaku went. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, one more thing. We have been linked with Matteo Gwendouzi of Lazio. He's fallen out of favour there. Apparently he's just not really fitting their system there. And Rodgers has just mentioned this on the, or at least he was asked about it in the pre-match presser for the Fulham game. He was asked about it by Keith Downey, I believe. And he said, of course, he still has some form of contact with Matteo Gwendouzi because he's worked with him before at Lorient. However, it's way too early to suggest anything for the January transfer window, and then kind of joked about it'd be difficult for him to get into our midfield at the moment anyway. So that'd be one to keep an eye on, potentially. We were linked with him in the summer. I think I did actually do a video or two covering him, and I would be very happy to see him come to the club. Would he slip straight into that midfield? At the moment, I don't think he would, just because of how well gelled that midfield, that machine, the cogs in there, they work so well together at the moment. However, you just never know down the line. I think we're still due, hopefully, touch wood, it doesn't come too soon, but I think we are probably due maybe a streak of really difficult games in terms of results not going our way. And that will happen at some point in the season, which is why I'm so happy we've already managed to build and surmount a decent amount of points on the board at the moment. So, if you do lose 1 or 2 games, maybe 3 games in the bounce, yeah, it's not ideal, but at least we've still got some breathing space from the teams behind us. But that was just one play that we have been linked with, and I thought I would bring it to your attention as well. But now, going into the game against Fulham. Now, Fulham, for me, it's a team I have a lot of respect for. Growing up, they were always just a team that kind of lingered around the sort of mid-table area. That they were a really established Premier League club. They go about the business very well. And they never really over the top excited me in terms of a team that may be pushing for Europe and stuff. But of the sort of modern times, they have sort of bringing the more exciting players that I wouldn't generally associate, with no disrespect to Fulham. So there is a lot of quality within that side. At home, they've only lost 1 game this season. That was against Arsenal in a really tight 1-0 defeat there. Away from home is where everything has gone downhill and totally wrong for them. Been absolutely abhorrent away from home, as I'm sure Fulham fans would agree. But at home, they really just seem to be this robust, structured side. And at home, away from home, they seem to collapse, which is a big issue for them. But down the backbone on that side, I think there's a lot of experience in there mixed with a little bit of youth as well. You've got that Kevin out wide, who I've seen glimpses of this season, and of course I only see highlights and stuff, so I don't know what he's like through a full 90-minute game of football, but very exciting, raw, skillful player that could really do a number on the likes of Trey Hume or whoever else would play on that right-hand side for us. But you've got that Jimenez up top, is loads of experience, and I think that'll be a real tough test for the likes of Dembele, Mukiele, maybe Hertrad who starts, or Alderete, which we'll get to. That would be a real difficult test, and you've just got Iwobi in there. Lots of experience, Premier League experience is in there, so we have to be up to it. We really, really do. It isn't going to be an easy place to go. I know as fans and maybe as even players in general, when you are going on this great run of form, when you've played recently Chelsea, beating them away from home, getting that draw against top of the league Arsenal, who looked like they were running away with it. It's very easy to just look now at every other team that's sort of below the sort of top 6 and think, right, we should piss all over them. Absolutely not the case at all, because every game is so incredibly difficult in this league, and every team is here for a reason. Fulham being one of those as well. They have threats of their own 100%, and I'm expecting a really, really difficult game at Craven Cottage. But in terms of Sunderland, so of course Rodgers has just had his pre-match presser. In terms of injuries or comebacks, should I say, from injuries, the likes of Dennis Serkin, he'll be getting 90 minutes tonight in the U team. Mundell and Leo Hjelde will be getting 45 as well. They won't be expected to feature at all, even on the bench or anything this weekend for this game against Fulham, but that's good to see. Dennis Serkin, particularly with AFCON coming up, and you've got Ronaldo, who I believe actually has a bit of a hamstring, not an injury, but it was just almost like a precaution. Something went up with him, and I believe that he is okay, and he should be okay for this weekend. I really hope he is anyway, because we might be seeing Masuaku ball otherwise, which, as I mentioned earlier, wouldn't be my ideal choice and my ideal selection for this weekend against Fulham, given their form at home as well, but he should be okay. Alderete, of course, international break. You've probably seen it, but he got himself a red card for sort of off the ball. Basically just being a beast, being an absolute beast, protecting his players, lobbing the opposition players about like ragdolls, because he is just a monster, isn't he, that bloke? And of course, if he did it for us, you'd probably be a bit more pissed off. But I think Regis did look at it more so as he's annoyed because he wanted to get Alderete a little bit of football after his protocols with concussion. He wanted to see him get on the pitch and get a bit of football in his legs, which of course he didn't get, which was a bit frustrating. However, for me personally, if we do have a fully fit Alderete, he has to start. I just think he's that good. Now, against Fulham, the team that I would maybe think about going with, I know we are getting used to that 5 at the back system, and I keep repeating myself, I don't want to bore you. It isn't necessarily 5 at the back at all times. Of course, you have the inverted full back at times. It can interchange as and when needed, and I think we will be under a lot of pressure against Fulham, despite them being currently in 15th. Like I said, their home form is fantastic, structured, well-oiled machine at home. We can't look down our noses at that. So for me, I would remain with that. We know we're starting to really get used to this system. He might even go for a 4 at the back, you don't know. But I just think we are getting used to the system so well that it makes it so difficult for teams to get through us. But we still have that attacking outlet going forward that I think, particularly away from home in the Premier League against any side away from home, as the team coming up, I think at least defending your goal as well as humanly possible and trying to get that clean sheet is absolutely vital away from home. So I would go with, of course, Roofs in goal. Of course, no-brainer. I'd have Ronaldo on one side. I'd have Troy Hume on the other. Then in the middle, if Alderete is fit, I'd have Alderete, Ballard and Mukiele, which I just think it's phenomenal. For me, and now I'm just watching teams more and more, I think that is, particularly that back 3, that middle 3, that core 3, it's one of the best defences in the league at the minute. I think, is it second or third best defence, or whatever it is. And I think in the long run, you might end up seeing Mukiele push over to right back and maybe Hume being dropped, as much as I love him, and Haytrelder pushing into that middle. So I think that back 5 at some point will be absolutely phenomenal. But for now, I would say drop Haytrelder and have Alderete, Ballard and Mukiele as the middle 3, and then Hume on the right-hand side. Now, in the middle, I would have Siddiqui, Xhaka, Lafayette on the left, Traore on the right. And now up top, this is where I'm kind of struggling a little bit, because away from home, I would like to give Brobbey his first start. Of course, with his goal against Arsenal and all that came beforehand, and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, there was a little bit of stick given to him online, only by a very, very small minority of the fan base. I think it might have even just been one lad that it seemed to make headlines that he likened him to Altidore, which I just thought was just fucking ridiculous when we hadn't barely seen him touch a ball, do you know what I mean? So for him to get that goal, he looks like he's buzzing. He could feel the love just oozing from the stadium light with that last-minute equaliser. He'll be so desperate and chomping at the bit to get on to the next game. And, away from home, a solid Fulham side gives us that sort of outlet to go forward and make the ball stick. As I keep on saying, he's really, really good at that. So really try and bully that defence, that'd work. And like I said, maybe Traore on the one side and Lafayette on the other. Traore's actually getting a little bit better and better as the games do go on. But I am a broken record here. I want to see Talby start. I really do. On the right-hand side, for some reason, he seems wasted. On the left-hand side, he looks infinitely better, blah, blah, blah. I've said it all before. But I do also understand having the experience of a Traore on the right-hand side, and he is getting better and better. And to bring on someone who has the pace and the direct running of Talby later on in the game, I can also understand why that would be maybe a preference for Regis. So yeah, I'd probably go with that, with Traore on one side and Lafayette on the other. But I would start Brobbey up top. I probably would. I think Isidore would be someone good if it is going a little bit stale towards the back end of a game, to bring someone on like an Isidore or a Mayenda. I think that could probably work just as good as starting Isidore and then throwing on Brobbey later on. Do you know what I mean? I think that could really work. Bringing on the likes of Isidore, Talby with 20 minutes to go and say it's 0-0 and we're struggling or 1-0 down. I think that could really be some good ammunition to throw at them. Do you know what I mean? But yes, that's probably what I would go with. Let me know in the comments down below what starting 11 you would go with. Now, score predictions. I'm going to sound boring as hell here, aren't I? But I just think with the way that they are at home, 15th, I think it's a little bit of a... it just doesn't show the full tale. I know they've been so poor away from home, but at home they make it so difficult at Craven Cottage. I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw, and I think Brobbey's going to get himself the second goal of the season, which I would be more than happy with, by the way. A point on the road, regardless of who it's against in the Premier League, I'd take it. I've said it so many times this season, but I would take the point happily. I'll go for a Brobbey equaliser. at some point in the second half after going a goal down. And I'd probably be content with that. A point on the road, not getting beat. I'd be more than content with that. I'd be more than happy with that. But of course, again, let me know in the comments down below your score predictions. But I'm going to leave it there, guys. If you've enjoyed, hit the like button for me. Subscribe if you are new. But for now, how are you, lads? Keep the faith.